Hi everybody, welcome back to my channel. Today we're making beef pho from scratch. To start this dish, we need to make a broth. So to a pot of simmering water, we're going to add 3.5 pounds of marrow bones. This is going to add such a depth of flavor as well as the silkiness to our broth. We're also going to add in a pound of stew meat. We're going to bring this up to a boil and only let this boil for 5 minutes. This is going to clean out any impurities. Now we can pull out all our bones and our beef, tip out this water, and clean that pot thoroughly. Next up, we're going to char 2 onions, skin off, cut in half, just over an open flame. If you don't have a gas stove, you can do this in cast iron or a grill pan. We're going to let these char for about 5 minutes, as well as a 3-inch piece of ginger cut in half. I've left the skin on. After 5 minutes, we can take these off the heat, give them a rinse, and rub off as much of that black carbon as possible. Now in our clean pot, we're going to add 4 cups of water, add back in our marrow bones and our beef, our onions and our ginger, 1/4 cup of fish sauce, which is also going to add a depth of flavor, 3 scallions just chopped into quarters, and 1.5 ounces of rock sugar. If you can't find rock sugar, just use 1.5 tablespoons of regular sugar. I'm going to go ahead and add in 1 more cup of water. We're going to cover this up and let this simmer for 40 minutes. Now go in occasionally and skim off any scum that rises to the top. I'm using a spoon that is far too big, but you'll notice there's not a lot of scum because we did that pre-boil. So working smarter, not harder, I'm doing this with a smaller spoon now. Just popping the lid back on and letting that simmer away. In the meantime, in a dry pan, we're going to add 6 anise pods, 5 cloves, 1 cinnamon stick, 3 cardamom pods. If you have black cardamom, even better, 1.5 tablespoons of coriander seeds, and 1.5 teaspoons of fennel seeds. We're going to give these a little toast, flipping and making a mess on your stove for 5 minutes. Then we're going to tip this into a cheesecloth that's far too small. We're going to realize our mistake, cut a cheesecloth a little bigger, and bundle this up and wrap this with some twine. If you don't have cheesecloth, just pour all the smaller spices into a tea diffuser and just pop in the larger spices into your stew. So now we're going to pop this into our broth. And now this needs to simmer for 4 whole hours. Just popping the lid on, going in and trying to skim off as much of that fat as possible. Don't worry about getting it all, because we are going to take care of this later. So after 2 hours, we're going to go in and pull out some of this beef stew meat, because we're going to use this in our pho. Just take 2 forks, shred it, pop it into a container, and stick that in the fridge until we're ready to use it. Now it has been 5 hours total. We can strain out all of our broth into this pot, and this recipe only makes 2 servings. I wish I had tripled it. You see the color is caramelized so deeply. It's beautiful. We're going to pop a lid on this and let this in the fridge overnight. Now it's the next day, and you can see that fat has risen to the top and solidified, which makes it very easy to scoop this right out. If you can't get every little single piece of fat out, don't worry about it. That's just going to add a little flavor. So once we've removed all of our fat, we can see how beautiful this broth is. It's a little gelatinous, almost like jelly because of that bone marrow. And that is looking beautiful. So we're going to pop this back on the stove, bring it up to a boil, and lower to a simmer while we work on the rest of our ingredients. At this point, we are going to taste for seasoning because we didn't season yesterday because of that fish sauce, and soup always tastes different the next day. So I'm adding in a 1/2 teaspoon of salt, a couple grinds of fresh white pepper, and a 1/2 teaspoon of fish sauce. In another pot, I have some water boiling for our noodles, and giving this a nice dose of salt. And use whatever noodles you have, but cook them for 1 minute less than the package recommends because it's going to finish cooking in the broth. So for our garnish, we're going to chop up 1 chili pepper, just into little discs. And next up, I have some sirloin. We want to cut this as thinly as possible. It's going to cook in the hot broth. And an easy way to get thin strips is to make sure your beef is kind of a little frozen before you slice. Now let's go ahead and plate. So to a nice bowl, we're going to add in a serving of our noodles. Next, we're going to layer in one side our reserved beef. On the other side, we are going to add in our thinly cut sirloin, which again is going to cook in our hot broth. Next, we're going to add a handful of bean sprouts. I just blanched these in hot water briefly. And then we're going to ladle in all this gorgeous, fragrant broth. We're going to top with our chili pepper slices, some torn basil, Thai basil preferably, I couldn't find it, some little cilantro leaves, some scallions, and a fresh squeeze of lime juice. And that is looking gorgeous. Now I'm very excited. Let's go ahead and give this a taste. I want to just taste the broth first. The spices in this, you can taste all of those aromatic spices we put in. The fish sauce adds this umami. There's this rich, silky depth of flavor from those marrow bones. The noodles are cooked perfectly because we cooked them a little under and allowed them just to finish cooking in the broth. Let's go ahead and taste some of this reserved beef. This has also picked up all those beautiful spices. This is fragrant, satisfying to my soul, and absolutely delicious. And next time we'll definitely triple the broth recipe so I can freeze it and have it for later. But there it is, beef pho made from scratch. I really do hope you all try to make this. Thank you so much for spending some time with me today. I really do appreciate it. If you like this video, give it a like. If you loved it, please consider subscribing and hitting that notification bell because I put out new videos every Thursday. Thank you again, and until next time, happy cooking.